Yep.
Yep.
Sure.
Cool. Okay.
And we're live?
And we're live, I think. So
Hopefully.
I
Yes,
got a
we are. We
notification
are.
for it.
we are live. Fantastic. That's actually on time and not completely broken at the beginning.
Yay!
I don't feel like we've started properly, to be honest. Uh,
Damn it, Traeger!
right. Yes. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
evening.
Good evening.
We're gonna play a bit of a devil's advocate game tonight. We're gonna have a bit of a debate topic that is, to say the least, a touchy and delicate subject. So I'm gonna ask you to be as mindful
So
of
many
the
inappropriate
subject
jokes.
matter as possible. Yeah, inappropriate jokes are part and parcel at the end of the day. But yeah, what we are going to be talking about tonight is basically what China certainly used to be doing, and I don't know if they're still doing it, but essentially having licenses for children. Utopian ideal for communist China. You know, civil rights and humanitarian nightmare from many other angles. Difficult to find anyone to actually vote and argue for it. So I'm actually going to play that role and argue for the licensing of children and allowing people to have babies. Um, so that in mind, and this is definitely me playing devil's advocate. This isn't my actual standpoint for future reference, just so that I'm not bombarded with hate from various people. I did want to play the argument out a little bit because it's an interesting subject, and it covers an awful lot of civil rights and sort of aspects of the future and where we're going as a planet, etc. Because it is not inconceivable that we are, as a population, growing at a rate that is going to be difficult to sustain, and we're burning through fuel, and we're burning through natural resources at a rate that is difficult to sustain, and as a result of that, we are potentially causing climate change. Through our carbon output emissions, if you believe all of these things, all of the scientists are saying, then population is a key problem that the world has today. And with that in mind, is it going to be a good idea to hold couples to a 2 children per couple rate? So basically to stagnate the growth, not decrease the growth, but to stagnate the growth of populations for the future, and to try and hold the population growth of the world and potentially even reverse it to a level where resource management and scarcity become less of a significant problem for such a large percentage of the population. One of the best ways to do that would be to hold people to a licensed system where couples can have two children, but no more. That would allow for the population to settle. That would allow for education systems to be able to cover the future population. And as I said, we could potentially work the population down over a number of hundreds of years, probably, to a rate that is manageable and sustainable alongside nature, as a greater good for the planet, essentially, to allow humans and nature and the world to coexist peacefully and in harmony. We have to give up some of what we think we are owed by living here. Some of the freedoms that we take for granted, perhaps, need to be curbed.
Right. Okay. In that case, with your premise,
Mhm.
are you sure you're arguing for child licenses, or are
Yeah,
you
that sounds
arguing
different.
for
Population control.
single or dual child policies?
Limits.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm also taking the devil's advocate side of this and saying that I'll even take it a step further. And you need a license to cut hair
You're cutting out, but
Basically,
You're cutting out bad, man.
Yeah, we're just
Oh.
losing you for a second.
you need a license to cut hair to do basically, anything. You need a license. You need a piece of paper that says you're allowed
Yeah.
to do this.
A true
So-
MCAT paradise.
So yeah, what would that license pertain? What would you actually have to be in order to have kids?
Well, just throwing the idea around, right? This obviously point. I think everybody should be as free as possible. But if you have a parent who can be genetically analyzed, and you have a secondary parent who can also be genetically analyzed, take both of those, put them together, and say, all right, this is the kind of like the movie Gattaca, right?
Mhm.
Where
Mhm.
you have an analysis of what kid may or may not look like, and a percentage and a probability of that kid. And if those parents have over a certain percentage, should they be allowed to have a kid, or should they be forced? If they want a kid, they could be forced to artificially inseminate, not maybe not forced, but highly suggested to artificially inseminate, or
Well, what would how?
So
how
you're
would that
saying couples that would have genetic weaknesses, say traits towards significant illnesses, etc., could be induced to either create the best possible baby and limit their requirements to have more, essentially. So make the best of every birth that's created. Is that what you're saying as well?
yeah, that's along the lines of what I'm saying.
That's very utopianist, and I use the term loosely. Yeah, no, there's some argument for that.
Sounds like
I actually read something on that the other day, where what they're heading for is where people will not reproduce naturally anymore. Will all be IVF, and the embryos will all be analyzed before they're implanted, and any that have any kind of genetic defects will be thrown away.
Well, this is just. I think one of the things that triggered this subject matter in the first place is this chap over in China has recently used the CRISPR technology. Not quite sure exactly what that means. To edit genes in embryos, and has produced a baby that is immune to HIV. And it's the first genetically edited baby ever. And
Well, one of the parents had HIV, right? And they
That's right.
edited it out of the
yeah, and they edited the gene that was capable of making the baby HIV, edited that out in some way, and yes, a baby that should have been born HIV positive wasn't. It was born healthy, apparently.
So we're basically on the track to a Gattaca scenario.
Yeah, we're already trading down that path. Pandora's box is open now, and I'll tell you what, give it 20 years, and that kid being fine and healthy and being, hi, no problem like everybody else, then people are going to start going, well, why haven't we been doing this? Why does my child have to suffer congenital defects? Yes, so why aren't we making the best? Why does health systems of the world have to look after people who are born? I hate to say this is going to sound terrible.
defects? I know what you're saying.
Well,
with
the
significant
truth
birth
hurts.
defects,
Isn't
and
that
yes.
just going to be like moving towards the whole master race? The bird effect?
You
Sorry,
touched
mate,
this
that
one
seems
with an
like-
absolute pin. But yeah,
Not
it is that rude.
Not really. Assuming we didn't have a healthcare system, a lot of these babies would be wiped out by natural selection.
Well, and
Yeah,
also it's you have to look at it from a broader picture as well. It's going to sound messed up, but cancer is one of the biggest money makers in the world medical industry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
These
along with
people,
AIDS, that makes a fortune.
Yeah.
It's
And,
basically medical
there's going to be
enslavement.
a lot of people, a lot of bad people that don't want their money messed with,
Yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
they're gonna do everything in their power to stop something like that,
Mhm.
or
Major
evolve.
organised crime syndicates, aren't they? Really?
Well, it's a bit
Uh,
much, no, because they're doing things within the law. But yes, they don't have your best interests at heart. They have their bottom line at heart. But yes,
Yeah, so either they can evolve and become part of the new revolution of healthcare, or try to do everything in their power to put a stop to it.
Yeah, and that's by giving us all mad drugs that make us want to kill ourselves.
okay. D.
Sorry.
Dude,
Bit off topic
these
there,
are
but
some,
still.
like I was saying
We're
earlier.
talking about
It's
Big
touchy,
Pharma
man.
here,
It's
aren't
it's really really touchy. You're making very 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 broad assertions. No, yes, there are side effects to some antidepressants that are set out to enable people to have a better life, and then the negative effects are significantly side effects. But they are there, yes. But yeah, they're not broad sweeping statements. Drug companies are not trying to kill us. They are trying to get us to buy more and more drugs. Which really requires us to be alive. So they do wish us a long and almost
Unhealthy
healthy
life.
life. No, not unhealthy, but almost healthy. You know, the occasional
Not
sniffle.
dependent is what I
Take
mean.
some
Unhealthy
tablets.
naturally, but healthy with their stuff.
Yeah, precisely.
Well, so some of the highest paid engineers in the world are the guys that build the little hand tools like DeWalt drills, Makita drills, and so on.
Mhm.
And they design them to fit into a bell curve. So you don't want a crib death. You don't want the tool to last, 10, 15, 20 years like they used to in the 50s.
Planned
You want to
obsolescence.
get, yeah, you're going to last a little bit after the warranty period and then die.
Mhm.
It's kind of the same thing applied to this situation. They want you to stay just healthy enough so that you need the drugs,
Yep.
and just unhealthy enough that you also need the drugs.
That's it. And you know what? Since the 1980s, we have been perfectly in that situation. Certainly the Western world, Europe, America, Australia, etc. We've been fitting that model so perfectly it's untrue. Yeah, our birth rates had settled down to just about two per couple, and the concern was the population was aging, instead of growing. But essentially, we had got that whole perfect planned obsolescence of people. People were running perfectly, and now there seems to be a move more people into that environment. We're using a hell of a lot of resources in the West. West uses something like 90%. Well, no, it's something like 60, 70%. China and India have taken a huge, great big bite into the energy consumption. But between China, India, and the West, we're using pretty much all of it. And if the populations of Africa start using that much energy, which they're going to want to, especially if they're going to migrate, etc., we're going to have to have a point where we can't allow people to have populations growing at the rate they are. It's absolutely not. And so child licenses, we're going to get ourselves back into the situation that China were in after the Second World War, where they were looking at a population that was ready to explode out of control, and they didn't have the resources to provide for them, and so they controlled the birth rate. This is going.
Well,
This is where we're heading in Europe.
To take on the other side of that argument, I don't know how true this is, but I read in a paper that I think it was a Stanford professor did a research compilation of all the people in the United States. If you pack them into a super city, would fit in an area the size of Texas. So over 300 million people in an area the size of Texas, and it would be efficient, it would work, and all the rest of the life free and open. I don't know how true that is, but it would be a crappy living scenario, but it would work.
Yeah, the whole world gets to romp, free of humans. That would be nice for the. No, it would be terrible for the cattle. Actually, it would be terrible for the horses. It would be terrible for most of the domesticated animals, and most of the other ones. We're kind of symbiotic at this point worldwide.
Yeah.
And I think that's important because I think it is important to have people spread out around the countryside that are capable of tending the country and working with the land. But we can't just keep spreading. We can't just keep. I mean, cities are growing left, right, and centre, and unless they grow up, they're just
That's what they need to start
they're
working
just
on.
going to all start joining up. I mean, in England, there are quite a few places where the difference between one city and another city, say Manchester and Liverpool, you can't tell. You're just driving from a city centre through houses, through some more houses, into another city centre. And that's two of the biggest cities in England, and they're just joining up. and eventually places like England, 67 million people in England. America has 330 or something. So, okay, we're a quarter of the population. We're about a tenth of the size. We have a massive population issue in this country in comparison to somewhere like America or Australia.
Important.
Here's the problem, Trig.
Mhm.
We've jumped around a few points, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna go from that point
Uh-huh.
and go backwards.
Please,
a little bit.
because we're
So-
off topic a little. So yeah, sure.
No, it's not a problem. It's just you haven't had anyone counter you. I was hoping someone would jump in. Anyway, so you have overpopulation.
Yes.
The problem isn't the overpopulation. A lot of people is good, generally speaking, because that means more people, more entrepreneurs, more people working, more people supporting the nation.
Yes.
The problem we have is we have a very aged population, and our retirement age compared to the average age of death
Mhm.
is about 20 years. So when you have quite a large population, such as not boomers, it's the one after boomers, I guess.
The one after boomers, the one after
Boomers
the
are the
Gen
problem.
Xers, the Gen
Yeah.
Xers, the under 50 to 35-year-olds, essentially.
Makes you feel better.
No, it's older than that. It's the people in their 60s.
Oh, those
There's
are
a
the boomers.
large.
Those are the baby boomers. The baby boomers are the 60s.
I believe it's like 30% of our population are all in that age demographic.
Yes.
And when your population is 60 million, that's quite a large portion.
Mm-hmm.
And so the reason we have such a large population as such, it's mainly due to that.
Okay.
But we continue to import people as well, because we take in about 200,000 people every year,
Yes, we do.
is to support those people and their government-held pensions, as well as to keep up as a nation on the world stage. Everything costs money. It's
Mhm.
essentially the capitalist system in action, but
Yes.
the socialization of a retirement scheme
Right.
being the main issue. If we didn't have retirement, if we didn't have to look after all those old people, say we just executed them upon reaching the age of 60,
Okay.
this
Wow,
would
this
not be
gets
an
worse.
issue.
Jesus. Okay. So I all of a sudden like my idea of child license is better than your eugenics at 60.
That's only because you're getting
I
close.
would like
that's
to
eugenics,
see
is it?
what
You're-
you say.
There's no such thing as being genetically 60.
No,
Well,
I said
Stasi
well,
just wants
yeah,
to
but
take away their pension, and
yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, it's not eugenics.
s-
You're right. It's what's the word for
I mean, I'm
bumping
not
off
sure
old
which,
people?
which I
how about
would
this?
prefer, right?
How about
You
this?
Euthanasia.
An aptitude, like
Sorry.
a license, right? You need a driver's license. So every so often, 15 years or 10 years or whatever, you have to take an aptitude test, and that determines your kind of like China's social credit score, right? That determines your availability to certain things. So
Yep.
if you kind of like an IQ, but a lot more in depth, a psychological exam, so on and so forth. And if you fall below a certain score, you can't get a job as a doctor. You
Yep.
can't get a job as a cop. So on and so forth. Until you get to a certain point where you're, just for lack of a better word, useless to society,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're.
Then what do you do with them? What do you do with them at that point? Exactly. So I've got a better idea.
You could
No.
you could throw them into a group home,
you
right?
take them to the farm.
Guys, yeah, Stasi, I think we're on the same track here. What we need to do is dead simple. Is we just need to arrange a purge for anybody
Oh
over
no
60.
no.
Yeah,
dude.
Anubis, are you still
Okay.
here?
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
David,
D
I
D
think
D
Anubis
D D.
missed this.
Okay. I'm really asking you. A, try to stay on track.
No, he was on
Makes
track.
sense.
Yeah, no, he was
So-
on track. He
So
was
D and
You're
D-
not
so-
supposed to
okay,
bring this
so-
topic.
right. No,
they
but
want to make it illegal to be over 60.
I was.
That's it.
No. I'm
I mean,
trying to
honestly-
argue that the children aren't the problem. The birth rates aren't the problem. The problem is we have a very aged population, and every
So
year
you're
people-
arguing that the boomers are the problem.
Progressively
Yes,
lower the
literally,
maximum
currently.
age.
Okay.
No, well, it's not
Honestly.
even directly the boomers' fault necessarily. I mean, they did vote in a bunch of socialists which allowed for pensions and shit. But I mean,
Well, honestly, I don't hang out, right? But I know and talk with a lot of older people. A mentor of
Mhm.
mine, she's 80, and she can keep pace with me hiking
Yeah.
in the woods, right? So
right.
there are a lot of older people that are worth a lot more than I am in my
Oh.
prime age I'm at now.
Oh yeah.
It's
And that's
do you-
how. Yeah, but
That's
that's
not-
how the purge would solve that,
no.
because those people would survive the purge.
No, they wouldn't do. What we're
There's a
talking
lot of
about
people
here
that are
is
jealous.
See what you did.
there's a lot of I was going to say I did ask to not go completely mental.
Sorry, I can't help it.
Yeah, but please
I-
do.
I ironically said we should execute the boomers.
Yeah.
My
You
actual
started it.
point. No, hold on. My actual point was that it's not the birth rates
Mm,
that is the problem. It is the age of which people
yeah.
are retiring at and how long they can actually live for. It's a decent 20 years
Yes.
of retirement of pensions, and then you've got, they have
okay.
to have care homes and stuff
Okay.
like that.
Okay. So they are productive up until that point, and then they have to have all these care homes and so on. The thing
Mhm.
is, when you're dealing with that versus birth rates, you've got 20 years of looking after them before they're getting productive.
Yes,
That-
but
that-
you had that
and-
with your
Right,
your older
no.
population
Here's,
already.
whoa. The other thing is that older population, a large amount of them, are, if left to their own devices, will have probably gotten to the point where they're perfectly capable of looking after themselves. Thank you very much. There's an awful lot of very wealthy boomers, as we'll
Yeah.
put it, that
Oh, yeah.
that are actually more of a problem because they're actually still in jobs. And
And-
they're
and
actually still
so-
working, and they're actually outworking a lot of the other ages because they've been doing it all their lives, and they're now running businesses, and have been
and
for years.
also
How is it a
I'd
problem?
like to say, well, I'd like to say this. So if you're 20 years old
Mhm,
and you understand the concept of the world that you're talking about here, and you know that you're just going to work and do your thing, and you're going to develop your life, and progress is going to lead you into old age, and then you know that you're just going to for
Okay.
no reason,
Yeah.
right? What is that going to do to the human psyche, right? You're not going to want to. It's basically
Gonna
a
retire
communistic
earlier.
scenario.
Oh no,
Yeah,
no.
well,
Here's how you work around that.
You're gonna
You-
retire
you
at
just
40.
tell people that there's this. No, you just tell people that there's this wonderful place you go off to at this certain age, absolute heaven.
No, see, this is it. What you're coming up with is what are literally horrifying situations that will
Okay.
that you
Yeah, right?
if you cull people off at 60, yeah, you'll find people will want to retire at 40. So
Yeah.
you'll have to do 20 years of breaking your ass work, yeah, to save the money. People don't want.
Trigger and I were supposed to be the bad guys in this, fighting for the baby license.
Well, you did a terrible job at it. No, hold on. As soon as this started, Trig suddenly turned this into this very gentle, and you were
Oh,
all
yeah,
gentle about
I
it.
know.
Yeah,
I
you
know.
completely changed
I
the
mean,
idea.
I know. No, I
honestly,
didn't.
I
I didn't.
No,
Yeah,
no,
no,
no, no. When this
I
started, you
hold
talked
on.
about having a. No, hold on. Let me explain.
Guys,
When this started, you
you're
mentioned
very
having a
hungry for
limit
this.
on the amount of children you can have,
Mm-hmm.
whereas the original idea that you were bringing up was
Child
about
licenses.
deciding whether or not you're allowed to have children. So
Yeah.
no, you immediately
No,
turned
okay.
this down.
I did an opening pitch on a debate as if I was going to win it, and it threw you off guard. And just stop. Don't let me
No,
win
no, you
this.
changed the debate.
No, the problem is my two allies here,
Oh,
which
your
are
suggestion was
Dean
weak.
Korak. Dean Korak seemed to have been caught up on the one episode Futurama joke where
What?
the fucking old dude, when he hits 100, and he's actually like 130, but because he had already hit 100, he had to get sent to that fucking prison planet where old people go to die. Right? I just said we should execute the boomers. Ironically, I said it.
Yeah.
my
I know.
main-
And these
I
mutants
wasn't
got
at-
stuck on it.
Okay, sorry.
For one
Go on,
last
I'm
time, for the allied side on my team. All right, I was
Well, on your team.
saying that the birth rates are not the problem, and that it's the old people in retirement.
I was
Yeah,
just offering a solution. That was all.
The final
That's
So
not
to
a
bring us
viable
back to
solution.
topic,
No,
Yeah,
hold on. No,
yeah.
no,
Bring
wait,
us
hold
back
on.
to
I
the
want to defend
original
myself real
topic.
quick. No, I need to defend myself. I was never arguing against that side. I was pointing out solutions to the issues they came up with in their own ideas.
You know, I was toying with the idea of putting autism in as a tag for this.
To bring us back to the original topic, I think I wouldn't bring in licenses, but I would take away fines past a couple of children. Like, you know how we get child support, and some people kind of make a living off of child support.
Yeah, that's
Like,
bullshit.
Oh yeah.
if you had more than 2 children, then you have to support them yourself entirely.
Big
Yeah.
agree. Big agree as a starting point.
Oh
yes.
man, yeah, I love that when a a couple has like 5 kids and the father dies and they have to go into
5 kids?
poverty because they couldn't afford to have because as soon as the
I
father
know
died, they
this
couldn't
chick
have any
that's got
income.
7 kids and another one on the way.
Yeah, I know. The thing is,
People
there's
do have life insurance, though, correct?
yeah.
That's why people take life insurance.
The state, the social security system within a state, give it, be it America, France, Germany, England, wherever, is usually set up with the aim in mind, at least the public aim in mind, of being there for the benefit of people who fall onto difficult times and can't support themselves. You have unemployment benefit is there to help people get back into work. Child support is there to support families in having children. When
Yeah, one
they
of the-
start using it as a form of income and just going, oh, if I sprog out another 2 kids, I can afford that new house I've always wanted because the state will pay for it.
And there are people who do that.
Oh, I know. That's got to stop. That's got to be that's
Cool
got to be
welfare
closed.
street.
I would let them have the child support for the first 2, and maybe make some exceptions for like multiple births and stuff, because
Yeah,
those
they got
can't be
triplets and
helped.
stuff. You can't.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, well, no, hold on. If you have triplets, you really gotta choose which one is the runt.
If they are not in a state to be licensable to have children, though, they wouldn't be eligible for child support. I don't think you could actually literally euthanize the kid as because that wasn't licensed, but there would have to be some sort of negatives. It's going to be it would be a very, very difficult thing, almost impossible thing to actually
Well,
police.
what about a charge then? I mean, obviously
no,
you're not
'cause
going
they
to take
get
the
put in
kids
child
away and be
services,
like,
won't
nope, this one's getting put down. But you could.
Yeah, it's not exactly helpful.
I kind of thought that was the idea.
Who's the right one here?
Well, this is it. I mean, would the state be enforcing adoption? And I think would probably be yes, would be the way of dealing with that situation. It would have to be extraordinarily harsh for people to take it seriously. And oh my god, the press would go bananas. That's it. The only time this has got to be a situation where the country that's putting this in place is at an absolute wit's end type scenario, or has the foresight to see it coming and is doing it as a preemptive measure. And yeah, it's always totalitarian, this type of scenario, but it is sometimes a totalitarian state, for the, dare I say it, greater good. I mean, China put this type of system in, when was it, back in the 50s or 60s?
Yeah, but China are now having to encourage people to have kids because they went
Yes.
too far the other way.
Yes, they caused a problem in China, quite amusingly, because culturally, obviously, China being
Wait, hold on. What did you say? No, it was
no, in China,
Nine.
what happened with the birth rates when they
no,
when they licensed
79.
79? Okay, when they did that, is they ended up having huge amounts of boys being born. Because people didn't want to have girls because a boy was going to do more for
Yeah,
the
the
family.
girls would get abandoned, or I think worse.
So you ended up losing a lot of girls. So there now you've got a nation, Chinese nation, that is full of boys and
The
not many
government is
girls.
now encouraging girls to have at least 2 children.
So they've got a problem on that front because of cultural issues, and they've also got the gayest population in the world, I would imagine.
All them
I'd say it's
sailors on
fate.
that boat.
Any hole's a goal.
Oh, sorry. I'm not poking fun at China.
Oh, you Brits.
China number 1. Sorry.
Yeehaw.
Bring it. So yeah,
Then
certainly
that's
it's
the
gone.
problem. Hold on. Say you was trying to address that issue. How would you know who's what? It's a girl.
What?
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 English this time, if you
You
could.
cut out for me.
Did you
Share
say?
the whole sentence with us, D?
No. Say you were trying to address the issue,
Right.
and to basically you had to send a whole bunch of like women over there to get impregnated to obviously
What?
make more.
What?
Oh, you're trying to solve the China issue?
Okay, right. Okay.
China's overpopulated, not under.
China's got a huge population problems all over the place. They can sort their own country out.
Okay.
I'm
just saying that the boys look like girls and we don't know what's what. So how would you know?
How
That's
high
hate speech.
is
the
What? That wasn't even coherent. So we have to send. Hold on. Let me get this right. We send the women over to get impregnated to curb the overpopulation issue, so that we can tell.
No, they have a dropping
who the men-
population now.
yeah.
They're actually encouraging multiple births.
Yes.
Oh
That's
dear.
what I'm saying.
But we're doing that in order to differentiate between the
Well,
men and the women.
No, what I'm saying is there's that many gays.
Do you
that
find
would
yourself
even work.
attracted to Chinese men?
What?
What a time to come back.
I think we got way off topic.
Around here in Trigger Hippie's Bakery, we are fully supportive of gay rights. By
Oh
the way.
yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I hate Trump.
Rainbow men good.
Orange man
Whatever-
bad.
Orange
Whatever
man
happened
may
to
be
that, I
okay
missed.
sometimes. I'm playing devil's advocate after all.
Can we move along?
Crossed the line.
I'm just
So
confused
Trig,
about-
Right,
we
so
are-
yeah, where were we?
assuming-
Yes.
Assuming you were to have people have a license, have children, how would you decide who got the license?
That's a good question. My initial premise was 2 children per couple. Called me old-fashioned that way, but it just seems to be a fairly equitable replacement rate, if nothing else. That basically equates to 1 per person. If someone wants to be a single parent, then I'm not trying to dissuade against that, but I think a part of the licensing situation should be psychological profiling. If so, the likelihood of child abuse to happen has to be taken into consideration. If we're going to do this,
crimes that you haven't committed yet.
yeah, no, if we're going to do this, we may as well actually, so psychological profile and financial means. Both of those things are things that can change over time. With help, if you can change your finances with psychological help and a sign off from a shrink, they can get that changed. But if you can high risk or sort of remove high risk cases out of the situation, you may as well. Which is
So
where
what happens in the case if a couple gets divorced but they already have children and then they form new couples?
they've already had. How many children have they had in the first original couple?
What if their partner hasn't?
Yeah, that's the problem.
Right. As I said, it's basically a 1 child per person type scenario. So if couple A break up, they've got 2 kids. Yeah. At that point, those parents cannot partake, essentially, in the
You
creating
would
of
have to
another.
be demanding paternity tests as well, because they could easily be like, no, well, it's not his. He hasn't got any kids.
Okay. So
And that's
okay.
once they hit that quota, would there be mandatory sterilisation?
Well, here's the thing. This is where you get the problem as well, because you've got I as a bloke could potentially run
That's what I
around,
asked.
get this girl pregnant, lovely,
I-
off you go, love, and then I go and get another girl pregnant, and then off you go, love, and so on and so forth.
Then
And
you
am I
go, "It's
using
not
up
mine."
either using up their quota or mine, etc. Is a
So
massive
then do
issue.
you
Old
just limit it
Testament
for the
no,
women
just
because it's easier
reintroduce
to
Old
tell if a woman's
Testament adultery laws.
the parent?
Oh, I don't. I shy away from making laws that are specific to just the women's. People get a bit upset about that. They've usually got blue
Well, it's
hair
not
and
specific
dodgy
to the
It's very
glasses.
just the women.
difficult
It's
to track with the men.
But it's very difficult to track with the men, exactly.
If the bloke has got 2 women pregnant, he's had 2 kids. That's his quota.
Yes,
But
but
then
has
you
he
have
has
to
he just
run
had 2?
mandatory paternity tests.
I was going to say, has he just had 2 halves of a kid? Has he actually had that kid, or has one of them been behind his back? Because he's a bit of a player, and he's found himself someone that's also a bit of a player.
Yeah,
So
and then when you do prove that a man or a woman, either one, has had 2 kids, hit their quota,
Mhm.
is there a sterilization process?
Oof.
Yeah, that's what I was asking about earlier.
Oof.
'cause,
Right, okay,
He's
so-
going to be like a dog, isn't he?
So
Well, then
initial.
you're talking about doing surgery against people's consent.
Yes, I'm not a massive fan of that.
Well, it's not against their consent, right? Because they consented to have the 2 kids in the first place, knowing full well what would happen.
What they would do is they would have the
oh wow! You just suddenly brought in the question of how this works with rape.
surgery.
Oh shit!
Okay, the surgery is an option that people can always have. Mastectomy and vasectomy, etc. No, that would still be optional, because you can't mutilate somebody against their will, especially if they go, right, okay, well, that's fine. I'm just not going to have kids anymore. I'll use birth
Okay.
control.
What is then the punishment for having an extra child?
Oh god.
That's when they become.
Well, this is it. The punishment is.
You gotta become
It's the dark side of this. It really is, because the light side of it is, trying to work for the better good and betterment of mankind and yada yada yada, and manage the world into a sustainable, synergy with nature, and we all get to live happily ever after, etc. The thing is, what happens when someone breaks the rules? And if your rule breaking is not enforced firmly enough, people will break it all the time. It's just
exactly.
These-
all cock and no balls, mate. That's how it has to.
Well, the main thing that these kinds of
Yeah.
mind games bring about is, in order to have this function, you have to have a lot of other areas of life change as well. Like, you can't just change this area of life and expect it to work flawlessly. It's never going to happen. But if you have a foundation built up to build this idea into, like a moral society, a society that's, trying to progress in the true sense of the word, you have to have a foundation in place to build this idea onto. So
Oh, yeah.
throwing this
world now.
Yeah,
the world now, it would cause complete chaos.
Oh god, yes. And you couldn't you'd throw it at one nation. One nation goes, oh yes, we're going to do it, and then immediately gets swallowed up by other nations that don't, that become more powerful in the short term, etc. This is totally utopianist type of stuff. Hence the pitch, the utopianist pitch at the beginning. It's more of a case of, wouldn't it be nice if everyone just thought it was a good idea and did it themselves?
It's nothing more than a
that's
thought
it.
experiment.
It's if people just only had 2 children and only had this type of scenario where it was how they were happy to be.
Yeah. That brings me into what I say often when I talk about this is, people lack like a good moral foundation, right? If would learn to, or develop the ability to build a moral foundation at which all of the rest of their decisions in life are based off of, and stick to that, right? Not change it every, whenever it's convenient, but stick to it. Things would be a lot better. Just a simple one too, just a simple moral foundation.
Oh yeah.
Well, the postmodernists did away with that quite strongly in the last 100 years. To be fair, but Stoicism, there are still quite a lot of people that sort of hold to some fairly stoic beliefs.
That's not really a moral system, though. That's a.
Um,
How do you answer any ethical dilemma with Stoicism? That's my question.
Yeah, that's a pretty good.
Give an example of
It's
where
okay,
Stoicism actually answers
okay,
moral
it's a
questions.
it's a good point. Stoicism is more a way of being in and around other people more than you're right. But we have to find a moral foundation in this new wonderful world we live in, because Nietzsche wasn't wrong with his whole God is dead and we've killed him kind of premise. The human desire for being watched, being judged, and being treated accordingly is it's just evident at every single point of our lives. The rise of social media is basically self-evident that people want God or want a God. They want feedback on a constant basis for stuff they do. Look, I've posted my lunch. Isn't it pretty?
Need for
That type of
constant
nonsense.
validation.
Yeah, the need for constant validation. It's
Yeah,
like
look
kind
at
of
my
childlike.
coffee.
Look at my coffee. Yes, haha.
Yeah.
Yes, I posted a picture of my coffee earlier. And you know what? I might post it. Glorious cup of coffee.
No,
Okay, I
I'm
don't think.
I'm sorry, guys. I
Stop.
have to run. I have to do a couple things here
Alright.
before I leave.
All right, dude.
See you
It's
later,
been great
man.
talking.
All right.
I'll catch you later.
Yep. See you guys.
Take it easy. So,
That
can
was
I
our
argue
special
against
guest.
you now?
So, yes, by all means, rail against me. Come on, bring
Right.
it on, because I'm pitching a dystopian, nightmarish solution that would solve one of the world's biggest problems. Please kill it. Please find
right.
it over it.
I was working my way backwards, so we dealt with the overpopulation. Eugenics. Shall we talk about that quickly?
Yeah.
Is that something
Sure.
you brought up?
Sure.
I'm not exactly a geneticist.
Okay.
But from what I understand from talking to my friend who is doing genetics in uni,
Yes.
we have three main issues. One, when we are changing and developing genes within embryos, we are not entirely sure of the total outcome of
Yes.
changing each gene.
Yes.
Secondly, if we were to find the perfect set of genes to put in order to create the perfect human, let's say, you cannot have every human have that perfect set of genetics
No.
due to breeding
I was going to say
mutations.
you'd end up with inbreeding problems like crazy. Absolutely.
And thirdly, is there's no such thing as the perfect gene.
And what about making something that could be added to the pre-existing?
You really
It's called
want to?
Down syndrome.
I wouldn't go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the moment you start having extra genes, you end up with birth defects usually.
Ah.
Yeah,
goddamn
don't. There's a reason why people. Yeah, just it's really tricky. This whole thing is, as you say, getting it right and not causing horrifying.
Frankenstein.
It's on those margins, but we're now getting there. We're now getting to the point where we can do specific genes, and you know, ethically, we shouldn't be altering people's
Playing God.
No, don't jump in, dude. We shouldn't be doing things like changing people's eye color, their hair color, their potential IQ, etc. But if we can create people who are less likely to have genetic diseases, are we not just lessening suffering at that point? With
Yeah.
it, it's an argument for it, but I still
Does
say
that
be
argument
careful.
not work for not making people stupid?
Exactly, I guess.
Well, you're
But
lessening the suffering of the people around.
yeah, a lot of very intelligent people suffer from depression. You the more 160 IQ people you have lurking around, the more you need to act as a diversion for them, because you'll run out of actual jobs for people of that caliber.
Well, I wasn't talking about like making people smart. I was just talking about curing stupidity.
Whatever.
Yeah, I'm up for that.
We do have,
yeah.
you know,
Not advocating this. I'm just
Hold on.
clarifying that what you
Correctly.
mentioned. I think could apply
Are you
to
done?
the same logic. Yeah. Now go on.
In this case, the mute
Right.
might just do. Go on.
Yeah. We have coming close to a century and a half worth of medication that
Mhm.
is perfectly capable of reducing suffering.
Yes.
We do not need genetic modification yet, unless we find some sort of genetic variant that actually damages humans as a
Okay.
populace.
I tend
I
to
was
agree.
just thinking more along the lines of our next step in evolution. Go into
It will occur
survival
naturally.
environment.
It's going to occur naturally. What we've got to do. This is why I bring the question up. My opening statement was a pitch shift from what I immediately said, but it was done that for a reason. We are looking at a case of. It's indisputable. We are running through the amount of oil that we have on the earth. Yes, via fracking and various other resource gathering systems, we've gotten access to other sources of oil, but we use it and we don't. It's not like it's being produced down there. The reason it's down there is it got buried a long time ago and got squashed a lot by a lot of rocks, and there isn't any more down there. Once we run out of it, we've run out of it. Once we dug up all the uranium, we've used it all. Oh well, actually, uranium's a different matter, but basically, we're running through materials on the Earth very, very rapidly, and every time we do it, we have to dig up more. And everyone's concerned about the Amazon jungle being torn down, and the state of growth and urban spread across every country in the world. And the only way to control that is to control the amount of people that are born, so that they don't continue growing.
You could always have a Thanos snap, you know?
A Thanos snap.
Let's do
Yes.
this. Let's change reality. Let's fuck this shit up. I'm doing
For,
it.
since you're not
Where's
aware,
that glove?
at the end of Marvel's last film, Infinity War, Thanos snaps his Infinity Gauntlet and wipes out half the population of the universe due to this exact problem: an overuse of resources
Spoiler alert.
with a spike of population. The population grows too fast for the resources to keep up.
I hadn't seen the film, but I'm okay. Interesting that's yeah.
You have no reason to.
Yep, that's the plot explained.
Phew.
But one of the one of the main solutions to this is not a curb of population, but rather alternative methods, or materials, or alternative ways of using resources, such as recycling, finding just better power sources rather than using, coal and oil. There are other, alternative ways of getting the things we want. If we weren't such a materialistic world, it would be even easier.
Well, yeah. I don't see that stopping. The materialistic world is what drives progress. The
Not
main
necessarily, but
problem
yes.
we've got. Sorry, what?
I'm agree with Darcy, not necessarily. Yes, I was just thinking about that. It's kind of what annoys me about this world in its current state of how materialistic. People are all bothered about the flashy cars and the fucking iPhones and
I actually do agree with Trick.
rather than working on, fucking getting
Bloody
out into space and
communists.
flying around and stuff.
No,
Okay,
no.
okay.
Do you want me to clarify my thing before?
Sure, by all means, please.
So, what I mean is, because there's such a high demand for the next best thing so quickly, every time there is even a minor improvement to a product or a material, it is immediately it's immediately cloned, it's overproduced, and it is a waste of resources because within a year you're going to have something better than that thing anyway.
Yeah.
I'm not saying materialism is a bad thing, it's just there's such a high demand, especially in the West, for the next best thing.
Yeah, I'm not denying there are issues on that front, and the days of getting a finely crafted goods, a TV that is made that will last for 10, 15 years. My first TV that I bought, and I'm going to show my age again. I bought when I was 14 or 15, about there. I saved up my Christmas money and other stuff, and I bought myself a TV. That TV lasted for about 15 years. And then it broke because I dropped the damn thing, and it was a big cube of a thing. I mean, it was the old cathode ray tube type TVs. But the idea of something lasting 15 years these days, they don't. They blow up a year after their warranty ends.
Back to Anubis's argument.
Yeah, they're built to have planned obsolescence in them, and that's a major problem with society at the moment, because we're not recycling those materials well enough, and partly because it's difficult to, and you end up with an energy negative scenario where it costs you more energy to put into it to recycle it than it does to just leave it there, essentially, which is a damned shame when you've got goods and products that actually work still, or should do, bar a component that was purposefully weak. The problem is, though, we as a population size, we're using, as I said, we're using tons of energy, tons and tons of energy. That's where it boils down to is resources, copper, coal, oil, and how that pertains to energy and products. And we use bucket loads of it. And if the rest of the world starts using it at the same rate, we're all fucked. We can't air condition every house in Africa and not expect global warming, or certainly the spike in energy usage, to cause major problems the world over. And that's just Africa. I haven't even started with India and China, that also need air conditioning in every house to bring them up to sort of Western standards. And then a couple of TVs and a computer and lighting. So that's about another potential 4,000 watts per person.
Right, I agree. Except we are always making alternatives. Such as Match saying in chat, nuclear power. We're always developing and creating new methods in order to.
Yes, and nuclear is great. Yes, that's why I left uranium out as a fuel source. I'm a massive fan of nuclear power. And if they would stop building the stations on places that have natural fault lines, or places that are likely to have tsunamis, etc., or stop building them with hinky Russian contractors from Soviet Russia that make them explode like Chernobyl, and said the whole world went off nuclear power for the whole of the 80s. It was very difficult to sell the idea of nuclear power being in any way, shape, or form a good idea until mid-90s. No one wanted to know about it again. You had Windscale in England. You had oh god, there was one in America in the 70s. You had Chernobyl in the 80s. There was just a whole string of really nasty radioactive spills, and that has to be sorted out. We may be there with fusion, but until fusion is a viable thing, until we get to energy is not a problem, we've got to look at the world as if that's not actually a real thing yet.
No, because then we would fall into the pit of what was his name?
3 Mile Island, thank you, Matchstick.
Was it Sowell? No, fuck. I'm trying to think of the guy. He had essentially plotted a theoretical graph of population growth and food expenditure,
Right.
and he predicted within 50 years of his lifetime, this was back in the 1800s,
Mhm.
that there would not be enough food to feed the populace. However, he did not foresee, like I
Fertilizers.
think you're doing now,
Yeah, he didn't know.
It's-
I
technological advances
yes,
and
An argument
te-
I got.
advances
dude,
of
you know me. You know me. I want to take the human race to the stars and populate every single planet that's populatable and
Yes.
terraform. I know what we're capable. Yes, but
Yes.
in terms of this argument, sure, yes, I know what you're saying.
Mhm.
And what I'm doing is that, yes, I'm arguing from the point of certainly in the UK, it feels cramped. Houses are built small. You go to Australia, you go to America, you go to some countries where land is not an issue, and a house that costs for an Englishman actually a very reasonable amount, is spacious and they have land. Yeah, they can stretch out. It's more the houses are more comfortable. They're living in a more comfortable fashion than some of the little 2 up, 2 downs and terraced housing that you see in inner city England. And they're just building more of that and slapping more and more people into high-rise flats. And the more you do that, the more you compact populations, the more you compact the problems. I don't think human race is supposed to live on top of each other in this level of. It's uncomfortable. It makes people uncomfortable. You've gone from
Okay.
villages where everybody knew each other to cities where nobody knows anybody. It's
Okay.
it feels like it's we're
I,
going the
I
wrong
do
way.
have a I do have a counter argument.
Sure.
What kind of problems are you talking about here? Are you talking about like crime rates?
I'm talking about crime rates and
Homicide?
yeah, all sorts of things,
Right.
But not just that. I'm also talking about social cohesion, about, as I said,
Mhm.
the whole idea of villages with a couple hundred people. Everyone knows each other, and I could take you to places in the UK that are still like that, where everybody knows each other. Sure, you turn up in there and people go, oh yeah, who's that? Because you are the stranger in town. But at the same time, they're living with their doors unlocked. They have no fears. Whereas you could go to any city centre or inner city of any town or city in the UK, especially London or Birmingham or Manchester, and go to a high-rise block, and every single door has got deadbolts on it. Everyone's terrified of each other.
Right.
That's not a good state of mind for people to be in, just on a
I
general sort of
agree.
living day to day.
I am unsure that is because of overpopulation. Because we can look at other countries where the issues are far worse. Their population to land mass is
So
much lower.
Japan.
No, I was
No,
looking
no,
at the
he's talking like
US.
Somalia.
Somalia? No, I'm talking like the US.
Like the US.
Yes.
Their cities are where they have the problems.
Well, yeah, he's not talking about the overall nation. I mean, the fact is that people can be densely packed in a in
Yeah.
a city, even if our nation as a whole is very open.
Yeah,
Hmm?
but it's the densely packed areas where the problem lies. Usually.
Right. I am actually talking about that. Right. The US population
Mm-hmm.
is what? Only nearly 3 times as large, 4 times.
Yeah, it's
Because
about
we've
four
got, like,
times
7,
the
8,
size of England. Yeah,
whatever.
it's 330 million. We're 67 million, I think it is.
Yeah,
So
5
5.
times though, let's say. Well, they've got 40 times the landmass
Hmm.
and 20 times the murder rate.
Yes.
So once you clock those numbers, you begin to realize that while we are more densely packed,
Mm-hmm.
per capita, the US murder rate is far higher,
Mm-hmm.
despite having over 40 times the landmass.
Sure.
Did you say 40 times the murder rate?
Yeah.
No, 20.
Can believe that.
I
London might be
believe there's
London's very stabby, but London's the only place in
Ah.
England that's really seriously dangerous. Whereas America, I believe, Chicago, sort of has a number of cities that are a bit on the iffy side to wander around in. Shall we say?
I am citing a study from 2016 in which UK had
Wikipedia numbers show more like somewhere 4 to 5 times.
Okay. Either way, I'm
What?
happy to accept it. Either way.
I mean, no, hold on. In 2016, I believe it's the CTA or CTO, something like that,
Okay.
did a study and found that the total homicide or murder with intent
Mm-hmm.
was at 751
Mm-hmm.
in the UK and at 17,500 in the US. Per capita, we had 1.3, I believe, 1.3
There's a
per
whole
capita murder rate.
I know. I'm with all due respect. I mean, there's a huge amount of societal issues that make England and America very different places. If nothing, for the fact that there's a gun culture in America that is significantly different to the English gun culture. And there
So
are
are you
guns.
saying?
No, I'm.
Okay, I should ask the question.
What I'm saying, what I'm trying to
Mhm.
say, is that whilst there are societal differences, the world over, in every country that you find, the problems are centralized largely in population densities because that's they're caused by people. The more people you have stuck together, you end up with critical masses. Whether it's worse in one country and better in another is largely irrelevant if they are still where the hotspots are, even if they're not so hot in some places. Cities,
No,
I don't know. I kind of want to break down the cities as to the way they are set up at the present moment. Is kind of what I'm saying. I don't like this living high and tall and packing people in as closely as possible and just keep cramming more and more people in because it's good for the economy, regardless of whether it is or not, and regardless of who's paying what taxes and whether or not the government is going further and further into debt in the process, which it is. Yeah, there's an awful lot of social security and social benefit systems that are overworked with the current system and are getting worse and will continue to get worse the more people get into it. I would personally, taking my hat off and yeah, personally I would say we can find other ways other than licensing children at the present moment. I freaking hope so. But the actual issue I'm talking about is quite real. And I don't think importing more and more people into an already crammed full country is going to help, because it's just going to mean there's going to be more people old later on anyway.
Oh, it'll be born here.
Sorry, pardon, D?
I was just saying that it'll be sooner than that because they're not actually born over here. So they're going to get older quicker, really.
Well, precisely, and an awful lot of the people, certainly with regards to the migrant problem, which is, I suppose, what we're skating around here. Certainly, the first generation that comes over are proving, certainly at the most part, to be difficult to employ. Certainly, some of them speak English and are educated, but others aren't, and they will be difficult to employ their entire lives. They'll become difficult to. They'll be a burden on the state largely. Their children will go through. Their children will go through education systems, and will learn and will become part of the society. But they will struggle. Maybe they will set up little communities and set up businesses and so on. But unless they are speaking the language, I mean, I know there's now communities set up to support them, but by and
I was just
large,
going to say that they're increasing the amount of shops, like Polish shops opened.
yes,
Trig, what
that's
you mentioned there, that's a problem with welfare. It's supposed to be an insurance system
yes, and it's not.
that you pay into it when you're doing well, and
Mhm.
hardships fall upon you, that insurance pays back out again. These people have never paid in.
Yes,
There you go.
yes, that is the core of the issue. And I'll tell you what,
And I think if you started enforcing that, they'd probably quite quickly find some jobs.
Oh god, yeah. Oh yeah, I would love to see a system whereby you can't take out of the social benefit system until you put in X amount. There are degrees of that, but they still don't let you hit the poverty line. And I mean I can tell, shall we say, anecdotes of stories I've heard of people that used to work in recruitment that would, and this is for anyone regardless of their particular situation and standing. If someone's been unemployed for a while and they say have a family, they quite often find themselves the recipient of so much benefits that they ended up being basically priced out of the market. You'll offer them a job for £25,000 a year, and they'll go, I get 23 grand in benefits. If I take that job and travel to work, I will be at a net negative, and I won't be seeing my kids all the time. Why do I want to take this job? And you can't rationalize that out for them. 2 grand better off when you've got to actually travel to a job and back. It's
yeah.
Do you take the benefits back so they struggle more? That sounds somewhat harsh.
Maybe you take away the benefits on the offer of a job. Like if you turn the job down, that's your own problem.
Actually, what I would do.
You try to make yourself less appealing for a job?
No, for those situations, what I would actually do is I would split the benefits into quarters, and for the first year, they would be the recipient of a quarter of what they were getting in benefits on top of the job, as a welcome to your new job. Here, have a load of money to set yourself up and get yourself started, and thank you for not being on the dole anymore. You're saving 75% of what you'd be paying them. They're getting a better deal, a lot better deal, and coming out a lot more wealthy.
Hey, do you know how universal credit works?
I'm familiar. I haven't used the social benefit system in a long time in the UK.
Well, basically, you get paid X amount if you got a job or not, right? And then if you get a job and you earn above X amount, then you don't get the money from the government.
Yes.
So you could just set that limit then, wherever he's getting off the government. If he starts earning over that, then, he starts getting money off.
Yeah. I don't know what to say to that, really.
Yeah, I thought you were stunned. I'm just saying that.
I'm not quite sure what you mean. Sorry, that at the present moment, the social benefit system works. That the social benefit system gives somebody money when they get a job. Once they earn over a threshold, that money stops coming into them. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I'm suggesting is don't do that. Is in fact, actually, for a year, after someone's been unemployed for a year, say, so mirror it basically, bring it down, and give them a 25% of the benefits that they were receiving beforehand on top of their wages, so they get a benefit there for getting the job, because we're disincentivizing a lot of people from actually getting a job at the present moment, and the social benefit system, instead of being used as a safety net and a helping system, is instead being used as a snare that entraps people and holds people within it.
Yeah, it's a hole. It's difficult to get out of.
I've seen it with my own eyes many times, and people that really want a job sometimes cannot get a job because they can't. It's a net negative for them, and they there's no point in them doing that. And that's a really awkward situation, because if they're working, they're bringing in tax revenue. It's better for the country and better for society in general. So yeah, I think they should get breaks like that. I think the social security system is
Childcare is
disincentivizing.
also an issue with that as well.
Oh god, yeah.
Why not? Maybe had their second child, and it becomes not worth them going back to work. They spend their wage in childcare.
Yeah.
Or they stay at home and they get free childcare because they do it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe some sort of, free childcare or reduction in childcare would definitely help some people get back to work.
I knew a lovely lass who was actually she worked full time. Bless her. She had a sense of humour on her, but she was basically working full time, and all of her money that she was earning was paying for the child benefit. And as she put it, she'd been looking after her kids. They were all going to school now, except for one or two, and they were due to, and she needed to get back into work. But I needed to get back into work because all I was ever doing was talking to three small boys, and I was going completely potty. But I just wish it would actually pay me some money rather than just be somewhere to be other than at home, because yeah, she was making no money out of it. And yeah, so childcare is.
Yeah, I knew a girl in a similar situation. She wanted to have her third, and she couldn't go back to work afterwards because the childcare for 3 kids was.
Mm-hmm. But that's where the old family scenario of your grandparents taking care of you whilst
We just found a use for the boomers.
I'm serious. Grandparents.
Yeah, my nana used to take care of me like every day after.
This is a freaking public service announcement. So
Well,
anybody,
like the first year of my
grandmothers
life.
are the best thing ever for young parents. Yeah, they willingly, happily will take their grandchildren and play with them for days, and they're a godsend, and they're not a substitute for childcare permanently. But actually, in some respects they are, and then in some respects they're a hell of a lot better. Because instead of an 18-year-old or whoever I want to be a nanny, doing it, rather than someone who is 60, 70 years old and has had a lot of experience in life and has raised kids themselves and etc.
That's the problem. A lot. You've got one set of parents, kids at 16, and their kids. The grandparents are still working full time themselves.
Yeah, well, yeah. Who knew? Society has one or two issues at the present moment, and not one little fix is going to fix it all. But yeah, no, that's definitely an issue. We're retiring. I think we're retiring too late. I don't think we're earning enough money. I think it would be lovely if the cycle went, basically get out of education around 21, 22, earn money up until about 45 to 55, and then be able to retire on that amount of money. And in doing so, have earned, a house and car and money to spend. If that was the cycle of life we were going through, things would be good. But it's not. It's only that cycle for a very few people. Most of the people.
A lot of people are not getting more
service guarantee citizenship.
Sorry, D, what was that?
For 30 years.
Oh, we just have service guarantee citizenship.
Yeah, but you don't even know what that means, really. It's just the thing. Nobody really does. That's the Heinlein. That meme. You know what? I really enjoyed Sargon's takedown and take apart of Starship Troopers, but I read Stranger in a Strange Land recently, which is his Heinlein's, another book of Heinlein's, and it is so much better in explaining the libertarian concepts behind what Heinlein's talking about. It really is an absolutely glorious book. The whole service guarantee citizenship does get a little scary, but you know we're talking about child licenses, so hey, bring on the scary. Sorry, I just heard noises there, dude.
I thought it tied in nicely.
Sorry, pardon?
I thought it tied in nicely.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, service guarantee citizenship. The concept behind it, you end up with a two-tier society. Now you've got a society then that one group has all the political power. The other group then is essentially they've chosen not to. But unless there is a disincentive to being in power, so unless you're taxing essentially the citizens more heavily than the non-citizens and treating them and holding them to a much higher standard, the system won't work because it will switch around and they'll end up oppressing the crap out of the non-citizens within 100 years. Just because that's human nature, and you can't stop that from happening. Sadly. That's
Really?
that's a very the Starship Troopers world. Equilibrium, the movie that's based on Fahrenheit 541 or whatever it is, and a bit of 1984. Those are horrifying nightmares they're talking about there, dude.
Well,
We're trying to save the world, not subject it to the jackboot that Orwell was afraid of.
We're supposed to liberate the world.
That's why I'm trying to do these debates, to try and sort of talk about ideas, find why they're a bad idea, find why something's a good idea. Having you sitting there going, "Oh yeah, that film Equilibrium, that was good." You just inject everyone so they can't feel anything. May I say,
I was just talking about the lower populace, so they can't cause an
Oh
uprising.
Jesus! Okay, just a slave class. Great, lovely. No. It is. It's like that little thing that sits on the end of Jabba the Hutt's podium.
The Kowakian monkey lizard.
Yeah, that's the one. Damn. Jesus, dude, that's scary, man.
Does that make you Jabba?
I'm not that fat.
No, it stars is the Hutt.
Yeah.
Let's not go any further down this line.
Appreciate it.
I'm as the sort of cripple in the room, that would make me Han, so I'm kind of running with it. Yeah. Damn it, man. That laugh.
More like Jabba the croissant.
Yep. Oh, where's the image? I've got that image somewhere.
Holy
No,
shit, it kinda
please.
looks like
I'm gonna Photoshop that. Give me a minute.
No, it's already been done.
It's already
man.
been
It
done.
was my image for a while.
I'm done with that.
This makes sense. It would look like French food because French eat slugs. Snails.
Looks more like a. Oh yeah, I suppose.
Oh god, what were we talking about? I mean, I was talking about Jabba the Hutt. Oh yeah, well, these laugh being crazy. It's totally threw me then for a second. Someone walk us back to where we can actually carry on the conversation, because I'm totally lost at this point in time.
I win.
No, you don't win. Your ideas are nightmarish. So far, you've
Wait,
proposed.
they're merely suggestions. Again,
You've
I just
proposed
thought I was
genocide of
listening.
everybody over 60, which I
Well,
guarantee.
not everybody, because to be able to do, it's going to be fair.
Okay,
They'll
okay.
have a chance to survive.
Can I just point out to you,
It's
D?
like the geriatric Hunger Games.
I was going to say, also,
There you go.
you're talking about all of the richest people in the world that have all of control of all of the money and armies. They're going to just kill you, D.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing of value was lost.
I need some kind of superpower or some shit to get this shit to work.
Yeah.
Goddamn.
Jesus Christ.
Well, it's kind of all irrelevant when you factor in our, the AI that'll be able to control this kind of thing.
Well.
Well, there is also brainwashing. That's, it doesn't have to.
No. Okay.
You take all the fun out of it.
I'm just realizing how awful D is.
Jesus Christ. You didn't realize him? We didn't realize that after the first firebomb at the back of your head during a PUBG session. Really?
I just thought he was bad at PUBG.
Sorry for that, Disco.
Oh, man. Okay,
The only guy I've ever met who has killed his entire team by accident. On multiple occasions.
I've seen it happen too many times.
It's happened so many times, I'm not sure it's an accident.
Yeah.
He got in my way.
Look,
Okay, D, we're just gonna sneak between these two hills. Okay, we're very vulnerable here, so just move.
Yeah,
Bang,
be quiet,
bang,
don't shoot.
bang.
Shooting at my feet.
You were shooting at me.
Anyway,
Oh, they weren't.
so are we coming to a close?
I feel like we're coming to the close, but I don't feel like we've come to the conclusion that I wanted, because at this point it sort of sounds
I
like
kinda
mine
blame
is
you
the
for
best
starting it,
solution.
probably.
Alright,
If
do you-
left
do
with
you
the
want me to
options
properly-
of
Do you want me to properly argue against you?
Yeah, come on, let's have it. Let's tell me why it's bad and how we get out of this shit without genociding somebody.
Well, it's not, you don't genocide somebody, you kill somebody. You genocide a bunch of people.
Yeah, that's it.
Here's
We're
the-
not. We're trying to avoid that. We're trying to sort of, getting.
Do you really want the government or any, power force telling you whether you can have children or not, when you can have children, how many children you're allowed? And once you start dictating those kinds of freedoms,
Mm-hmm.
the basic freedom to reproduce, which is the
Mhm.
most natural instinct of a human being,
Mm-hmm.
once you've pushed that into a governmental power, other powers will follow suit.
Human
Ones we
rights.
probably can't even think of.
Human rights become irrelevant at that point. Yes, quite right.
Yes.
I'm going to declare a win for that one because I totally agree with that. The way we sort this out is fucking educating people, and getting them to stop reproducing like goddamn rabbits. White nationalists are there blithering on about the great white replacement, and they haven't actually bothered to look at the fact that there's more white people on the earth now than there ever has been. It's not.
You're going with that one.
I was
No,
going
dude,
to say
come
no.
on.
All of these issues. It's a birth rate problem, yeah, and it's one group breeding
Yeah,
another.
so we need to figure out how to lower the birth rates of blacks.
Thank
Is what
you,
you're saying,
thank
right?
you, Cope.
No, that's what you were saying.
No,
right?
I was
that's
saying
the
all
logical
sorts of
conclusion
groups of
what you were
people.
saying.
All sorts of groups of people. I'm not being specific. We could say the same about Catholics. Catholics have a tendency to having large amounts of children too. So.
Yeah, this is why you need to get out of Ireland.
But basically, like I said, it's got to be through education. It's got to be through education. Otherwise, anything else ends up being horrific.
I just have brainwashing. I mean, education.
Oh God, I'm gonna have to kick you at this rate if you just keep on saying. I'm
No,
trying.
don't, it's great fun to
I know, but it's like every time I get halfway through something sensible, I get.
Right, anyway.
I get.
Thank you guys
Worse than
for
James
listening
Bond
to the
villain
Bakery
crap
Podcast.
going off in the background. Oh.
Thank you for listening to the Bakery Podcast. I hope you enjoyed us muttering about enslaving the children
Yes.
and possibly their parents.
Yes, licensing
And
and
we never
big
talked about
government,
enslaving children.
big government bad in general is the big thing. But yeah,
Yeah.
let's.
That's not what we came to. We came to a bunch of ways of oppressing people.
Well,
Yes, I
mean,
know, but
it
I'm
started-
taking
And
taking
not
my
only that,
evil
but
hat
coming
off.
up with the fact that that's the only way we can possibly save the world. This is not what the result we came to.
Okay. The result we came to is we've got to do horrifying things to the
We're
general public,
screwed.
and we're screwed.
Thank you for seeing it my way.
Unless we push forward with nuclear power and sort out power issues and take the focus off oil and make certain oil rich states less rich because we don't need their oil anymore. And let's see what happens there. Anyway, I'm gonna end the stream on that bombshell. And thanks everyone for watching, and don't forget to, subscribe and smash the like button and all of that crap if you feel like it. And if you don't, well, thanks for listening anyway. Cheers. Take care.
Bye.
That was terrible.